I chose to create something that was no longer serving me. And so finding a solution to it looked like taking some steps back. Y'all, we are back for another season of Rich in Real Life. I am ecstatic to bring you this content, and we are going to go to the next phase of my journey, and I'm going to take you with me. What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Rich in Real Life. I could not start this season without telling you, of course, sharing with you one of my most recent transitions that I never would have thought I would have found myself in. However, I seem to realize that this is something that everyone goes through. And by natural accident, which is very me of me, I did something that has literally changed my life forever. Just by making a few decisions that were best for me in the moment. And it led to some really significant changes. And so I wanted to share this with you guys going into this season because I thought it was really important, because I know you have felt these feelings before. And it's my most recent 6 months of silence, putting my head down, doing the complete opposite of what I have done in the last 2.5 years. If you can imagine a car rolling down a hill 65 miles an hour, the only way that that is messy is when it is not under control and you don't know where you're going. And that's kind of the intersection I found myself in at the end of 2023. I was doing all of the things. If I were completely honest with you, I was exceeding my expectations for where I was supposed to be and where I was going. Insta Podcast, my production company, we were slated to hit the $500,000 mark. And before you even chatter about the noise online, my goals are not everyone else's goals. I know everyone 7, 8 figures, this, that, and the third, but I have been working tirelessly at hitting these goals. And so $500,000 was more than I had ever bargained for with a team of 8, like the work that we were doing and the fact that I was doing everything that I loved. So here I am, wrapping up 2023, surpassing what I thought I should have done, knowing and having that feeling that if I just did a little more, if I just reached out a little harder, if I just stretched myself a little more, I could have more, I could do more, and I could be more. And I knew that about myself, but something felt off. I had this weird awakening at some point where I was like, all of those things I just said, and you have nothing to show for it. Condo with the floor to ceiling windows for 2.5 years in the center of downtown living, the opportunity to be present and do fun things with my son, make the money that I wanted to make. I created a business out of thin air, literally out of thin air, to do the thing that I love the most, produce content, tell stories with some of the most profound and incredible humans I think that walk this earth. I'm doing all of these things and something doesn't feel right because it felt like this turn and burn. It felt like this wheel that was moving very fast, going nowhere. Where am I going with all of this? What is next? Why am I earning all this money and I have nowhere for it to go? I have nothing to show. This doesn't make any sense. You add to that I'm starting to feel tired. I'm feeling burnt out in a way that I couldn't explain. It wasn't just my body was tired. My soul was tired. My creativity was tired. The lack of creation, I wasn't myself. I knew something was missing. One thing I realized for sure during that time was that I had a lot of questions that I could not answer. Everything from what's next, where do I want to go, where do I want to live, what do I want my life to look like? I was the one on here preaching rich in real life, create the life that you want, have the freedom that you want. And I didn't know what my freedom looked like because I had created my own golden prison. I had created my lack of freedom, the life that I was living to maintain the life that I had created, the work I had to do, the level I had to work at to maintain the life that I created had me literally in bondage. And I'll never forget, Keela Hilwick was on my podcast. She was also a client of mine. And she said, one of the most profound things someone ever said to her was, you're sitting there complaining about your business and you created it. You created something that you hate. So fix it. And it wasn't that I hated my business, but I couldn't answer a single question. 5 years in business, hitting milestones that I feel are milestones, hitting my goals. And I don't know what's next. How I feel, the reality of what I felt. Here's the reality. And this is what a lot of people aren't going to admit. They're going to show you what they want to show you. But while I was hitting milestones, I was living in the place of my dreams, I was traveling for work. Here's what else was happening. I was gaining weight rapidly. I was skipping meals. I was completely unhealthy. I had no friends. I was not living. I felt like I was in bondage, and the spinning plates, the plates that I had to spin and juggle to keep the life that I had maintained was tanking me. I was not living anymore. What had happened was I was waist deep in my business. Like how they say, like, you got to be in your business. I was waist deep in my business with no space. Like waist deep, waves coming, couldn't swim, every day paddling for my life with no space. And I think one of the most profound things that led me to what I'm about to tell you that I did was a dear mentor and friend of mine saying, you're in one of those spaces where you've got to get out of the business and get out of your head. And in my mind, I thought, well, okay, all right, I can do a week. I can take a week. I don't have to go anywhere fancy. I don't have to spend any crazy money. I can take a week. And she was like, oh, no, you need like 30 days. And I was like, I can't take 30 days away from my business. And she was like, well, I guess you have a new goal then. So as my wheels started turning, I'm like, how can I take 30 days away from this business? What kind of space do I need to create to be able to take 30 days away from my business to not work in the business, but work on the business? What is that going to look like? And my mind couldn't reckon with this. I was like, what does this look like? Like, how do I do this? I don't have the money to go on a month-long vacation. I don't have the capacity mentally to go on a month-long vacation. I'm co-parenting. I'm a single mother. I don't have the space for this. I run a team that they can do without me with 4 or 5 days, but they can't do without me for a month. This isn't going to work. And when I realized I had all these questions that I couldn't answer, there's one thing I know to be true about me. Once I decide, when I have clarity and then I decide, oh, honey, things move fast. They've moved faster than fast. Everyone around me has always told me that. Like, once you decide, things that people do in 6 months, you do in 2. Like, once I decide and I am clear, you can forget about it, get out of my way. But one thing I've realized about me is it takes a good bit to decide. And when I lack clarity, I have to be willing to sit in that too. Like, I can't make rash decisions. If it's not crystal clear, it's not clear. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So you're going to have to sit in that hell no for a while. And end of 2023, I didn't have any answers. Everything. There was no hell yeses. Everything was a hell no. Like, I was like, none of this feels the way that it's supposed to feel. None of it. I didn't hate my business, but I was like, where is all of this going? 5 years, knee deep, building the team. All it felt like was like, I keep taking on more and then I build more. I take on more clients and then I build my business more. I make things better. I tweak. I better the systems. I simplify this. I add this. I take on more clients. And then it's just this life cycle of turn and turn and turn and turn. We make a little bit more money. I don't know where the money goes. What the hell is happening? What is the end goal? Where am I going with all of this? And so because I had no answers from anything in my business to, I didn't know where I wanted to live. I didn't know what I wanted my environment to be. I didn't know where I wanted my son to go to school. I was just like it was like a rock bottom of fog, like no clarity. I had no clarity. I had built all of this and I did not know what was next. And I think this is funny because I've talked about this before. 1, if you don't know where you're going to go nowhere fast. But 2, I think the dream has to be recreated. It constantly has to be expanded. Because oftentimes when you have the vision and you have the dream, you don't think about what's going to happen when you get there. Sometimes that is the end all be all. So if you're saying right now you want to make 7 figures, then what? You need a plan after that. When you make 7 figures, then what? What are you going to do after that? And we forget that when we arrive at the thing, we have to come up with a new plan. And so I was realizing I wasn't failing. I wasn't unhappy with what I created. I was just there. And I had garnered more than I anticipated. So I didn't know what was next. I needed to recreate what next was going to look like, what the next 5 years was going to look like. Where was I going with all this? What was I doing? But I needed space. And space was what I didn't have. I had no time and I had no mental space. So the only thing I knew was I needed space and time. And what was interesting was obviously I was having this conversation with people that mean the most to me. And at some point, help was offered to me. Now, to my high achievers, my type A individuals, y'all that act like me, whatever you want to call yourselves, Aries, Leos, hyper independent women, do it all, do all the things, be the carrier, have all the control. It is wildly difficult to receive help, especially when you basically have to submit to it. And my dear best friend and my son's godfather offered me an opportunity. They said, if you don't know what you want right now, come live with us. My lease was ending. I had spent 2.5 years in the center of downtown Tampa, thoroughly enjoying my lifestyle, but I knew I didn't want to be there any longer. I knew more than anything, I needed space. But I will tell you this, I didn't think it would look like that. I didn't think that space would look like downsizing. I didn't think that space would look like what could look like externally to everyone else's failure. Because I'm going to be honest with you, that's what it felt like. I sat on that decision for a good little bit, talked to some friends about it. And the people that love me most were like, this is exactly what you need. There's still some things pending in your life. There's some money and mindset things that need to be evolved. There's a loop on your healing that needs to be closed. It was like I had done all the work, but it was like this unfinished loop. Like it was like I just kept going in a circle and I couldn't close the loop literally because I didn't have the space to close the loop. But I never thought it looked like downsizing, giving up everything I had maintained, putting my son and I in a 1-bedroom in a house with other people. And I sat on it for a while and then I decided. And that's exactly what we did. Here's a couple things that I knew. In this time of making this decision versus when it happened, y'all, I felt all the things. I knew I wanted more safety. My nervous system was shot. I knew I was craving community. I knew, even though it was the hardest thing to ask for, I was craving support. But this decision in this way, at this level, didn't feel right. Like literally my mind was back and forth 24/7 on like, what this looks like is failure. What this feels like is I'm having days leading up to this where I'm crying in the shower because I'm like, what the hell happened? You're going to turn 35 this year. You're a single mom of a 6-year-old. You have a business that people love and praise publicly. Privately, you don't know what the fuck is going on with your life. It's like you're starting over. You did shit like this when you were 23. Moved back in with a family member to kind of hit the reset button, figure life out. This is literally like you're doing this as a big ass adult. 35, you're turning 35, moving in with your best friend, dragging your son along with you to experience all this uncertainty of you don't know what you want. Boy, y'all, I was heavy on myself. The guilt was real. Like I was like, what are you doing? The only thing that got me through that feeling was talking with friends and family that were like, this is the reset you need. You can't keep going at this rate by yourself. It is unsustainable. You need time to step back, step out of the business, allow yourself the support, some space to think and figure out what is next and figure out the life you want and then rebuild everything around it. If you have time to see it all from an expanded view, you get to back up. You can rebuild this thing in a way that gives you the life you want. But right now, this thing is running you. It's literally running you. And that was one thing that I knew to be true. It was one thing that I could not steer from was I knew this thing was running me. And what Keela said was right. I chose to create something that was no longer serving me. And so finding a solution to it looked like taking some steps back, a whole bunch of steps back. So if you're watching this now, I moved me and my son in with my best friend and her husband, which is my son's godfather. Shout out to Megan and Dennis. And we lived there for 6 months, November to April. I literally could cry thinking about this because while I've already told you how this felt, how many times I sat in that shower and cried about how this felt like failure. It felt like starting over. It felt like you are turning 35 this year and you literally look like an idiot. You have a $500,000 business and you are living off your best friend right now in their home, unclear on what's next. Boy, was I wrong. Because boy, are they right when they tell you if you put your head down for 6 months and just give yourself tunnel vision, the things that can happen are beyond what you and I could ever gather. Here's what happened that I could have never bargained for. 2 out of the 6 months, your girl rested. And when I say rested, I mean rested. Now I worked because I worked off a discipline and I do have a business to run. But I took November off completely. We moved at the end of October. I took November off, not by design, But because I was supporting my mom, she had a big major surgery. I went home for a week. And when I got back, something in me was like, no, this work can wait. You need time. And that 30 days that I was planning for, it happened immediately. When I say I rested, y'all, I got the most sleep I have ever gotten. I had the most time and space to think. I traveled for fun. And I know that doesn't sound like anything crazy, but I had realized in all of 2023, every trip I took was work related. I went places for fun. I had me time. I had space. I was able to regulate my nervous system. I was able to realize the chaos and the spin out I was living in, because there was a whole time frame that in that rest, I realized I just needed to rest because my nervous system was so spun out that when it wasn't stretched to the brim, I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had so much time on my hands. I felt like I had too much support. Like I didn't know what to do with the access time and the access support and the leverage of help and the privilege. Another thing that happened that I couldn't have bargained for was I watched my son get the support and the community he needed that I don't think I knew as a mom he needed. I was trying to do all the things, and dear mama, it is not our fault. We want to do all the things. We want to be all the things. If you are single momming, co-parenting, either way, when you are at home at night, you are doing this by yourself. You want to give your child all the things. And when I put my son in community with 2 other people that loved him, and he was in a house with 3 people, this is the part that makes me want to cry. When he was in a house with 3 people that loved him, he got the attention he deserved. He got the access to people that were willing to play with him, spend time with him on homework, take him places. We would all go to the park together. Like, the support and community my son had was something that I didn't even know he needed, because here I was thinking I could do everything for him. And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. Seeing him with that family did something for me. And I'm going to tell you this in a minute of what this whole experience led to as far as tangible things. But this stretched me in a way that made me realize, what on God's green earth ever made you fight to do this alone? What on God's green earth made you ever think that you needed to work so hard that and do this with your son alone and make this look easy? It is so much better in community. It is so much better with other people. The support, the love, the attention to detail, the extra hands, the help. I've never seen my son thrive the way he has in the last 6 months than he ever has, because mama was trying to do it all by herself. The other things, calming my nervous system, like I mentioned, I see myself now, I hardly get up in arms, blow up, or into chaos about almost anything. Everything used to send me. The level of short-tempered I was, astronomical. Fast forward to now, I literally feel like nothing can turn me because everything is figure-outable. Because I have the mental space and capacity. I don't have all these things picketing in my body to have my attention, to fight harder, to do it faster, to be more efficient. I feel like I'm in a flow over anything. And so the calmness that has come over my body for that instance alone has been worth it tenfold. And then I think most importantly, I closed the loop on my healing. Now, I'm not saying healed with an ED, but I think I closed the loop on a lot of the things that I was struggling to let go of, because I feel so free in this space of my heart. I feel like I have the capacity to go places, go back to giving again. I think one of the places I lost space for in my heart the most was giving. I got to a place where I could receive, but giving was hard because I was giving from an empty place. And so I think this last 6 months filled my cup in a way, just from the support, the extra hands, the extra love, the feeling of being surrounded by family, the time to read, be alone, be in solitude, have space, exercise, like all the things gave me the space to realize where I was empty at. And giving was one of them. Giving took this extra responsibility that I was not in overflow at all. And fortunately, I had this space to do it. Now, that's all the mental, beautiful, unexpected things that happened. But here's all the tangible things that happened. Because we got to have some measurable things, right? I paid off $21,000 in debt. $21,000. 6 months, I paid off $21,000 in debt. I want to add to that, separate from that, I saved almost $20,000 for a home. Let me tell you something about money. And we already know this to be true, but I'm just going to reiterate. When you know where the money's going to go, when you have a place for it to go, when you can tell it a place to go, I promise you it comes faster. I paid $21,000 off in debt. I saved almost $20,000 for a home. I hired a fractional CEO for my business. Life-changing. If you have not done that, I was late to the party. I want to be clear. But if you have not done that, do that. I hired a fractional CEO. I hired a bookkeeper. These are the two best things that I have ever done for my business. I hired a wealth planner. I was like, holy shit, where have I been? No wonder I wasn't making any more money. I was about to hustle and do the extra reach and extend myself more than I already was to be able to do these things. When the reality, I didn't have the money team and the right people in my corner. Now that I have these people in my corner, I'm like, oh, this is about to happen so much faster because I know exactly where I want that money to go. $21,000 in debt, almost $20,000 for a home, hired a fractional CFO, hired a wealth planner. I did multiple deep dives with my team. I think I've gotten the closest with my team inside my business than I have ever been. I took on the two biggest contracts we have ever had, almost six-figure contracts twice. We're working on our third right now. And that's not to include the other contracts that we have brought in, but two of the biggest contracts that you could have never told me in the 5 years that I have been doing this business that we could ever earn that much on one job, ever. And I know that that is just now the starting point, this is just something God wanted me to see, and that there is so much more on the way. We increased our clientele. The type of clients that we work with, the people that I'm talking to now, y'all, I'm closing my eyes because I cannot put words to, nor can I understand, nor did I ever think that I would be working with the type of people that I am working with. The access, like the people I have access to now that I am getting to work with, I realize 6 months ago, God could have never gave me that because the responsibility that would have come with that, I did not have the capacity for, nor could I handle, because I could barely handle my own life. I'm like, God, I get it. I get it. You weren't going to give me this until I created space for myself. And I really feel like I cleaned up house and home. Now, obviously, I was in somebody else's house, but I mean like home. Like I cleaned up home. I remember like 10 years ago when I started this journey, it was like 6, 7. A friend of mine said, like, if your car is dirty, your money is too. And I was like, ain't no way. Like there's no way that that's true. Let me tell you that my car is never dirty now. Never. Kid or no kid, never dirty. And I feel like there's a very clear correlation, and you probably see it too, that anytime my money is messy, my life is messy. Anytime my life is messy, my money is messy. There is something about everything in your life being organized that makes everything make sense. And you just get into this flow that feels like magic. I can't explain it, but there was just something about the way that I gave myself space that put everything into this beautiful, effortless flow. Just a flow. And I think one of the most important things that happened that I didn't anticipate was the way that I set boundaries in this season. Like I'm talking about, I've told y'all this, your girl's a recovering people pleaser. I will say yes to anything if I think it's going to make my team look good, if it's going to make us look good, if there's a possibility that I could make somebody uncomfortable by saying no, I will take on that discomfort. I will put that discomfort on my back. No problem. I got it. You don't like this? No problem. I could do it faster, more efficient, and it won't hurt me as much. I got it. I got this. Put it in the backpack. This is the first time that I have literally said no and not questioned myself to so many things. Said no to big clients, said no to people begging to work with me, like people that we have worked with in the past that I knew we did not have a good relationship, that were triggering me, bringing me to a place that was not serving me in a way that I wanted my leadership to go, my business to go, for my ways in which I didn't want my team to feel. And now the no's are effortless, like effortless. People being like, I can't even tell y'all the amount of people that have come to me recently like, hey, can you just help me with this one thing? in it, like similar to real estate. I feel like people in real estate are always like, hey, if you can just help me close one deal, I'll split it with you 50-50. And then when I learn, I'll give you all the credit. No, learn from me and then go do it. Like the amount of people that have come to me and been like, hey, can you just help me with this one thing? Can you help me with this branding? Can you help me with this? Can you tell me what I should do in my business next? And, oh, but I'm going to look out for you when it takes off. No, I am so focused on the thing that I am doing and doing it damn well, doing it so good and staying in my lane so that what I am able to harvest from it, I can build other things with for other people. I know that this is the vehicle right now that is going to get me profitability, that's going to get me to wealth. 5 years of business, and this is the first year that we have been profitable in a way that I can see. Profitable over 10%. Like mind blowing. It took me 5 years to get there. And now I know if I just double down on this and stay in my lane, I can have the profitability that will lend to wealth, and wealth that will lend to impact. And then I can build things around me where I can actually reach and do the things that I want to do without having to question myself or the validity of other people, and do it in a way that is fitting and feels good for me. But I need to double down on the thing that I'm doing really, really well at right now. So here's the really beautiful thing. I wish I could say that I've always known where my life was going to go. I almost never have. I'm going to do an episode this season called Entrepreneur by Accident, because I have never, ever, ever been that person. Like, I will go to conferences and watch people on stage talk at length about how they knew from the time that they had a lemonade stand when they were 5 years old that they were going to be an entrepreneur. I knew none of that. I have a master's degree in business administration. I have literally, what I call, gone with the flow my entire life. And then the minute I have a new vision, and I know that God's not going to give you a vision that you can't conceptualize, all you have to do is choose it, walk in it, and what will be, will be. But I have felt like I've been going with the flow my whole life. And all I know is that when I get clarity, I say yes. And when I lack clarity, it's a hell no. And so I didn't have answers to any of my questions when I took this 6 months deep dive. But that's because I was in a season of sitting still. That's because I wasn't supposed to make any decisions. It's because I was supposed to rest. God wanted me to be quiet. He wanted me to listen. He wanted me to be disciplined. He wanted me to sit my ass down somewhere, rest my decision fatigue, because it's not time to make decisions right now. And of course, in this transition, here's what happened. So I'm nearing March, and I'm like, I know I got to make a plan. I have a friend that posts that she is renting out her apartment because she's moving in with her fiance. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom on the water. And I'm like, I message her and she's like, absolutely. I would love for you to take it. This would make me feel so much better if it was you and no one else. And I'm like, great, done. She's like, okay, you can move in mid-April. I'm like, great, done. We found our place. Decision made. Now I'm in full prep for us to move again. We're going to be in a location. My son's going to have a better school. This wasn't the plan, but I didn't have a plan. So this feels better. And top of March, I get a phone call from my mom that my dad is not doing well again. My dad's a former cancer survivor. He's 70 years old, and she is on the swing of taking him to back-to-back doctor's appointments. She's worried about him. He's in bed a lot of days. And so here's the beauty and the benefit of entrepreneurship was I was traveling back from Atlanta on a work trip, and I said, okay, I'm going to get back. I'm going to repack my bags and I'll be there tomorrow. My parents live 3.5 hours away from here. So I grabbed my son. We drove up there the next day, spent the weekend, and I was sitting on the porch talking to my dad, which, by the way, it's so interesting. The simplicities in life seem to get better and better as you get older. I remember running out of my parents' house when I was 17 years old and thinking I would never come back, and how boring they were and how they were not living life. And now sitting on the porch and having coffee with my dad is probably my favorite thing to do. And I'm sitting on the porch having coffee with him. He's sitting in his rocking chair. We're talking. And he's telling me about how this house that I'm in, that he's in, is all he has to give me and my mom. It's the only thing he owns. They've owned it for 28 years. Well, they paid it off, but they've owned it for 28 years. It's owned and paid off. They own it outright. And this is all he has to give to me and my mom. And then he makes the joke that, God forbid something happens to me, your mother will be on the first thing swinging. Like you're going to have to come get her and she's going to move to Tampa with you and Cameron. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been planning that for 10 years. I knew that. And it just got quiet. And I was like, why are you going to wait until something happens to you? Like, why don't y'all just move to Tampa now? Now I'm running my mouth at this point, but I would have never thought my dad, his ego and his pride would have taken me up on this offer. And we sat in silence for a few seconds and my dad was like, you're right. I think it's time for you to take the wheel. I don't want it anymore. I don't want to take care of this house. I don't want to be in control anymore. I don't have it to give anymore. And your mom can't do it by herself. And while that sounds so sad, what came from that moment is me moving my parents down here and finding a huge home for us to rent in a beautiful community. Eventually we're going to buy a house, and me moving my mom and my dad down here to be around their grandson, watch him grow, and me for the rest of their lives. I never saw this coming. One, I would have never been prepared for it because I thought I had to do everything alone. Two, living with my best friend and my son's godfather, her husband, made me realize how much I craved community and family and connection. It's how much it made me realize how much I crave support. So it was like the precursor to what was coming that I didn't even know what was coming. And this is the thing about the lack of clarity. I didn't lack clarity because there was something wrong with me. I lacked clarity because there was something coming. And God was just like, not yet. I have something, but I need you to get ready. I'm praying for clarity, and he gives me 6 months of silence that make me feel like I'm a failure. And now here I am at the end of this 6 months. I'm changing from this 2-bedroom apartment to a 5-bedroom house in a neighborhood that I absolutely adore here, that has a top-rated school in the county that I live in, to moving my parents down so that they can spend the rest of their life enjoying their grandson. And I can spend my life with my family and have the support and the connection and the family that I didn't know I missed, that I was craving. But you couldn't have told me that to save my life 6 months ago. You couldn't have told me that that's why I was being asked to hit the reset button, get out of my business, get out of my head, and free myself the space to think. Because that golden prison that I created it was what I needed right then, but it wasn't what I wanted for the long term. And it wasn't what I needed. It was just me taking on a bunch of things that I thought I should have because this is what a lot of people do. When in the reality, there is nothing that makes me happier than being able to have the privilege and the opportunity to move my parents closer, for my son to have his grandparents, for me to have a life that feels grounded again, that feels supported again. Obviously, babysitters, and the support community and connection that I didn't know that my soul needed, that now I'm literally going to have access to all the time. I had to tell y'all about that transition because I think it's just an experience that's so important for you guys to understand, because there are going to be periods, seasons, long ones, where you're not hitting goals. You don't know what's next. You feel like you did everything that God told you to do and nothing. Crickets. No clarity, no understanding, no next steps, no resources. What the fuck am I doing? And you've got to turn inward. You've got to take the thing. You could have never told me in a million years that after creating a $500,000 business, I was supposed to move in with my best friend and her husband. Like, what? Yet it was the best thing I ever did, because it gave me the space and the freedom to get the clarity that I needed, that was literally going to put me in a position that I feel like I can have true peace. I can build real wealth. I can have real happiness. I can have real family. I can have real support, and I can be grounded in the way that my soul and my body and my life has been craving. That is this tattoo. I don't know if y'all can see it. Freedom. That is this. That is rich in real life. Sometimes you're not going to know the how. You're not going to have clarity on the path, but you got to have some faith. Faith in his time, faith in what's next, faith in where you're going, even when the path is unclear. I love y'all to the ends of the earth. Thank you for rocking with me. We're 5 years deep now. Thank you for trusting me with your listening time, sharing this with your friends, taking the time to listen amidst your busy schedules. I get it. Trust me, I know. We're all juggling a lot. I hope this brings you some understanding, some peace, some grace for your timeline right now. And I'm sending you so much love. I'll see y'all in the next episode.